Hey guys, TGCast Productions. For this GT Online video, I have another buying customization and review for you guys for the Vapid Slamtruck. This is another drip feed vehicle from the Capopreco Heist DLC. Now, this vehicle can be bought from Southern San Andreas Super Auto's website. I believe it's the last one coming to that website for this GT Online DLC, and it retails for $1,310,000. As can be seen right there. So let's go ahead and purchase this vehicle. As always with these videos, let's also read the caption. Due to a recent spate of accidents involving this model, Vapid wants to remind any potential buyers that a common side effect of driving the Slamtruck is the constant stream of assholes attempting to clear your ramp on the freeway. See one coming. For the love of God, duck. Alright, so there we go. There's the caption for the Vapid Slamtruck. Let's go ahead and purchase it. Get into a pre-custom, look at the pre-custom look. Pre-custom test drive. Check out the customization after that. So let's go ahead and check out the pre-custom look of the Vapid Slamtruck. This vehicle appears to be based off of a custom 1956 COE hauler, and essentially a COE. What COE stands for is a cab over engine truck. Now, talk about the history, background, where I believe Rockstar got the inspiration for the Vapid Slamtruck towards the end of this video. So as always, let's go ahead and use the remote functions here, open up everything that can be opened up on the Vapid Slamtruck. We see here up on the cab, or in the cab part of the Vapid Slamtruck, we have the two doors that open. This is a two-seater, as well as the hood where the engine is located. There's nothing really in the back that you can control. Unfortunately, as I'll talk here very shortly about, there's nothing in the back you can control, literally. But one thing you will notice, and it's pretty interesting, is when we get inside this vehicle, this is a vehicle that's in the utility class in GT Online. And I believe this may actually be our first utility class personal vehicle, or personal vehicle that's in the utility class that we're able to buy in GT Online, which is pretty interesting. Again, a personal vehicle. There may be some from Pegasus. I'm not 100% sure. This may be the first utility vehicle we've ever received in GT Online that we're able to purchase, but nonetheless, I would say definitely as far as a personal vehicle is concerned, it is most likely one of the first, if not the first. Now, also, as I was sort of stating my disappointment there a little bit ago, there's nothing, you can't control the flatbed at all. And I know that's what a lot of players were hoping for. Unfortunately, there's no remote functions. There are no buttons on your controllers, on consoles, or on maybe the keyboard on PC or the mouse. There's nothing at all that you can use to control the bed of the truck, which is extremely disappointing. It's almost like a Wastelander type of side effect. And I bring up the Wastelander because that was a vehicle added with the Import-Export DLC, and similar situation where it was really meant to haul vehicles, but Rockstar never gave us that option. I mean, you could cargo bob a vehicle into it. Same thing here, you can drive a vehicle into the Vapid Slamtruck, but it's not going to stay too well. There's nothing to sort of stabilize it, which is extremely unfortunate. I'm very disappointed about this, and I'll talk about a little bit more of that in my final review a little bit later in this video. As far as the first test drive here, I mean, there really were no red flags. As far as performance is concerned, I wouldn't be too worried about it just because it's a vehicle in the utility class. I mean, you're really not going to be racing in the utility class. I will tell you this, that it does appear to be the fastest vehicle in the utility class, for sure. And you'll sort of notice there, sometimes when you try to drift this vehicle, it will spin out, probably because of the bed, or the weight of the bed, length of the truck. So that should come really as a given. But yeah, I mean, I'll talk more about the performance and everything else in the final review in this video, but let's go ahead and check out the customization for the Vapid Slamtruck right now. So let's go ahead and check out the customization for the Vapid Slamtruck. And before I note a few things, as I always do with the customization, do to mention, you might notice there at the very end of the first test drive, that pre-custom test drive, when you reverse the vehicle, it actually makes a sort of beeping noise, but you'd probably see, or you probably hear on like a utility vehicle or emergency vehicle. So I thought that was really cool. And then also, there was no cutscene for this vehicle as I was pulling it into the office garage, which is pretty interesting because just about every vehicle in the game has that cutscene. That's pretty rare. It might have something to do with the suspension, maybe because the suspension is already so low to the ground. Maybe there was an issue with that cutscene. I'm not 100% sure, but I just thought that was interesting. Anyways, let's note a few things about the customization here. As I mentioned, I do believe this is the first personal vehicle we're allowed to own that's in the utility class. Now, just because it's our first one in the utility class doesn't mean that we're getting all this, really unique customization for this vehicle. The customization that you're getting with this vehicle is probably what you've seen on a handful of other vehicles in GT Online. There's nothing super special. There are some cool, really cool exhaust options you can add to this vehicle that I was just shown shortly ago. There's even some visor options, but in really nothing super unique. This is customization you'd see with a lot of other vehicles in GT Online. Now, there are 18 unique liveries. There is a primary and secondary color. There's no trim color. The primary color covers the majority of the cab of the vehicle, as well as parts of the hauling area. And then the secondary color covers the majority of the hauling area, as well as the fenders or the area of the cab around the bumper and the wheels. So that's pretty much what the colors control, and I'll obviously show that here very shortly. I also believe the tires for this vehicle are unique to the Vapid Slamtruck in the sense that you can't bring another vehicle to the mod shop and add these same tires to that vehicle. So that is interesting. So I do believe they are unique tires to the Vapid Slamtruck. Now, the last thing I'll mention about this is that this is probably the most unique aspect of the Vapid Slamtruck is there's no suspension for the Vapid Slamtruck. I'm not necessarily saying this is the first vehicle in GT Online to have no suspension, but what is cool about that, and I'll talk about this as I said earlier in the background or history, or where I believe Rockstar got the inspiration for this vehicle towards the end of this video, but the real life version of this vehicle, or where I believe Rockstar got inspiration for it from, actually there was sort of a very low suspension for that vehicle, and you can see that the Vapid Slamtruck stock has extremely low suspension, and typically the suspension options in GT Online, when you add them, the more expensive you add them, the lower the vehicle goes. And I mean, if this vehicle went any lower, it would pretty much be riding in the ground, which wouldn't work. So I think that's cool, even though there are no suspension options. I believe it sort of references the real life version of the vehicle, and again, I'll talk about that towards the end of the video. In any case, it's pretty much everything I'll mention for the customization. As always, guys, feel free to check out the rest of it if you so choose. After customization has been completely shown, we're going to do a short showcase of the Vapid Slamtruck. I'm going to then show you my final product. We'll do the final test drive review and do the brief history background, the real life versions of the vehicle to end off this video.
Do you need a drink? Bubbles or something? Whatever you desire. Technology and budget permitting. No rush at all. How many cars you got in this garage again? I hope you know how to use this thing. Think long and hard. You're not gonna get a flat. Don't she look pretty?
Alright guys, so I hope you enjoyed the showcase for the Vapid Slamtruck. At this point, I'm going to show you my final product of my personal Vapid Slamtruck. I'm going to give you a 360 view here as always. And as far as the primary color is concerned, I put a Torino red on. For the secondary color, I put a cream, and both of those are metallic colors. And then for the livery, I put Diego's Garage. And then as far as other modifications worth mentioning, I added for the hood a Vapid MK1 hood. And as always, I'll leave all the modifications added to this vehicle in the description of this video. So let's move into the final test drive review for this Vapid Slamtruck. Now, as I stated in the first review, I wouldn't really worry too much about performance in this vehicle. If that's something you're concerned about, you'd only purchase it for performance because, again, this is a utility class vehicle. You're not really going to be competing in the utility class. In GTL 9, you can, and I'll sort of mention a few things here very shortly, but a couple things I want to mention as we're driving here. One thing you might notice when you're just sitting in the vehicle with the engine on or just driving it around, it seems like it has a pretty cool engine tune or engine sound to it. I'm not really sure how unique it is compared to other vehicles in GTL 9. I mean, again, this does appear to be the first vehicle in the utility class we can have as a personal vehicle, so it may be somewhat unique. I'm not 100% sure, but nonetheless, it is a pretty cool sound. At least I liked it. And also, you might notice on the highway here as I'm driving, I seem to reach around usually around, I would say between 90 and 100 miles per hour, maybe around 95 miles per hour. Again, this isn't really a foolproof test driving on the highway there, but as I was driving around, even besides what I'm showing you here, that seemed to be the speed that I reached. So I just figured I'd, mention that. Now, as far as I did state that, you really would, this isn't a utility class, so you'd only be able to compete with cars in the utility class. And I went through a handful of Rockstar created GTL 9 races. I really couldn't find any that were in the utility class. Although it doesn't say that there aren't any races that you can use the utility class with. I personally went into one of my custom races that I actually used from time to time to test some of the new vehicles or vehicles in general out in GTL 9. And I was able to pick the utility class. And I was able to race the Vapid Slamtruck against, I believe, like 5 other utility vehicles in that race. And the Vapid Slamtruck, I would say, as a whole, had better stats than all 5 of those other vehicles. So, and I would say, even if you didn't have like a personal Vapid Slamtruck, just using like the regular Vapid Slamtruck in general in the race, you'd be able to win. This does appear to be the fastest, probably best performing utility truck. So if you were to happen to do a race in the utility class, the Vapid Slamtruck would be your choice. And I did also happen to go in the creator because obviously if you're creating a capture, at least I know of, you can spawn utility or different vehicles and different classes in the creator. And I looked at the utility class. There were a couple additional vehicles that I could use in the creator that weren't able to be used in races. So I just figured I'd mention that. But yeah, pretty much if you were to happen to be doing a race the Slam Truck would be your choice for the utility class. Now, really the last thing I'll talk about in this review, or the final review here, because I said I'd mention it or talk about it a little bit more in the first review, is the fact that you cannot add, or you can't stabilize vehicles on the back of the Slam Truck, which is extremely disappointing, I know, to a lot of players, including myself. When I saw this vehicle was going to be coming, I was really hoping this was going to be an option. And I did have, I'll show you a couple clips here. One clip here, I did have my friend on the back of it, one of his personal vehicles. He said he was holding the E-brake, which I believe on console is like R1. So that may have helped stabilize it a little bit, but there is nothing on the Vapid Slamtruck that can stabilize the vehicle itself. The winch doesn't operate. There's the flatbed or the hauling area is completely inactive. There's nothing you can operate on there. So the game does not allow you to stabilize the vehicle in any way. It is a lot easier to get personal vehicles, or really vehicles in general, on the back of Vapid Slamtruck that would have been on the Wastelander, which was another disappointing vehicle because we couldn't haul vehicles on that vehicle also. But on the Wastelander, you'd actually have to jump a vehicle onto the back, or maybe cargo bob it on the back, because there was no way to lower it to the ground, and it wasn't lowered to the ground at all, or at least this is, so it's a lot easier to get a vehicle on the back of here. But it's disappointing that you can't stabilize the vehicle at all. Again, you can't drive vehicles around on here. It's not going to stabilize. It'll probably fall off at some point, probably very shortly in the drive, especially if there's no one in the back to help try to, I guess, stabilize it down like my friend was for a bit. And it is good for stunt jumping. You can do that also, which can be fun. But I really hope Rockstar comes back to this vehicle in the future and really considers adding the ability to stabilize vehicles on the Vapid Slamtruck. That's what I'm hoping for, and I think a lot of players are too. Now, as always, to end off this video, let's get into some background and history on the real-life version of the Vapid Slamtruck. Now, as I mentioned towards the beginning of this video, I stated that the Vapid Slamtruck appeared to be based off a custom COE hauler. And again, COE stands for cab over engine. I'm not really going to get into too much of the history of cab over engine trucks, because there's a very specific model that the Vapid Slamtruck appears to be based off of. But as far as cab over engine trucks are concerned, just if you happen to be curious, the whole purpose of having those, and I want to say they were very popular between the 50s and the 70s, at least I would say in the US from my understanding, was due to a number of laws or regulations that were surrounded around the length that a truck could be. So having a cab over the engine helped eliminate the length of the truck. That was really the whole purpose of that. However, over time, the laws increased the amount of length that the truck could be, so I would say they sort of started to phase out probably after the 70s or into the 80s, from my understanding, at least in the US. But yeah, that is a little bit about cab over engine trucks. But again, the Vapid Slamtruck appears to be based off of a much more specific variant or version of a COE hauler, and actually really the only one of its kind that exists. Now, the specific model the Vapid Slamtruck appears to be based off of is actually this couple's model, Susie and Mark Stutchel, if I'm pronouncing their last name correctly. And they actually created their own COE hauler from the ground up. And before I go any further, the link or the site that I'm getting a lot of this information from is actually by Lindsay Fisher on rodauthority.com. And I'll leave this site or a link to it in the description of this video. Getting back to this couple, Mark and Susie Stutchel, who live in Iowa. They're pretty big car fanatics, car fans. They like to go to car shows. And the idea was to create a vehicle that would be able to haul, I guess, at least one of their vehicles, because they both have one that would take the car shows. They're going to haul one of their vehicles to the car show. Now, as Susie and Mark Stutchel were on their way home from a Goodguys Colorado Nationals car show in 2015, they started picking up sort of the tools, I guess you could say, for the build of this vehicle, starting with a 1956 fire truck. And that can really be seen, or the look of that can be seen on the cab of their custom COE hauler. They also ended up using a snap-on tools truck for the chassis, or I guess the frame of the vehicle, and then also a custom fabricated hauler ramp for the bed of the truck. And that's sort of what went into creating their COE custom hauler. Now, I mentioned in the customization that there was no suspension for the Vapid Slamtruck. What's interesting is Mark and Susie's custom COE hauler actually had this sort of custom air suspension system that was implemented for their custom COE hauler that allowed it to have a more suitable stance, as well as be able to be pretty low to the ground, very easily allow them to transport their vehicles up onto the hauler. And I think that's really cool because I think the Vapid Slamtruck helps to reference that with its extremely stock low suspension, and obviously having no other suspension options that apply to it to bring it up or bring it any lower. So I think that's pretty cool. Brings out the realism of the truck a bit. And as far as the assembly of the custom COE hauler, it appears the credit goes to Jimmy's Customs, a car restoration company out in Wellington, Colorado. They appear to be the ones that assembled this vehicle, and they added a vanilla and Snap-on candy apple red paint scheme, as well as Snappy's Garage on the side. And the paint scheme was meant to match Susie's 66 Ford F100, as well as, I believe, even a little bit of reference of Mark's days when he used to work for Snap-on, and that was actually one of the trucks, as I mentioned earlier, that was used in the process of creating the custom COE hauler. What I also found interesting is that apparently the truck can reach speeds upwards of 75 miles per hour while hauling a vehicle, which is pretty interesting. And also, it appears Susie was surprised, Mark's wife was surprised with this vehicle at the Goodguys Colorado Nationals car show in 2016, because she didn't necessarily believe it was going to be completed by then. Mark managed to pull it off, and it actually won the Hot Hauler Award in that car show. So that is pretty cool. But that is pretty much all the history that I have for you guys that I outlined. Again, I'll leave the source that I got a lot of this information from in the description, as well as a few others. Now, as far as what it costed Mark and Susie to have this vehicle constructed, I am not 100% sure. I wasn't really able to find anything on that. I'm sure it was quite pricey, though, because I did some research on some COE haulers that you could purchase or that are for sale that were around the time period of this, I guess, 1956 COE hauler custom, and they could be pretty pricey. And I'm assuming that's probably based on the condition of the vehicle as well as any custom work that would have been done. But in any case, guys, that's pretty much everything I had to present to you in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it extremely beneficial. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video. Be sure to comment if you have any questions. And as always, have a great day.